So today, we're going to tear apart a really powerful blueprint for building a resilient 8-figure business completely from scratch. And this isn't just theory, okay? We're doing a deep dive into the specific systems and strategies one expert would use to create just explosive growth if they had to start all over again. Let's get right into it. So, how do we really get to the core of this whole thing? Well, we start by asking a really simple but super powerful question. If an expert had to rebuild their business from absolutely nothing, no team, no capital, zero, what would they actually do? This whole analysis cuts through all the noise to get to the fundamental principles they live by. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. 4 key pillars. First, we're looking at the engine. You know, how to get that initial demand going. Then we'll shift gears to the accelerator and explore how to scale up without blowing things up. After that, we'll zoom out to the framework for the long-term strategic structure. And finally, we'll pull it all together in a unified model. Okay, let's start with the engine. This is the absolute foundation, the mechanics you have to have in place to get your business off the ground. And more importantly, generating the cash flow that's going to fuel everything else. Now, this slide highlights something that's just so crucial. Sales isn't just some department, it's the founder's bootcamp. Why? I mean, think about it. Mastering sales forces you to get good at communication and to build up resilience. But even more importantly, it teaches you the fundamental lesson of how money actually flows into a business. And that's a lesson you absolutely need to learn before you can lead one. So you've got the sales skills, fantastic. Now, where do you find the customers? Well, this analysis points to a really powerful strategy. Build an audience first. By just creating and sharing valuable content, you're building trust and you're grabbing attention. This isn't just marketing, it's a way to de-risk your entire venture. You get to validate your offer before you spend a single dime on ads, and you create this amazing pipeline of inbound opportunities, which of course just slashes your customer acquisition cost. Okay, so the engine is running, you're generating consistent revenue, now it's time to accelerate. But the key here, and this is a big one, is to scale intelligently. You're adding fuel to amplify your momentum, not to cause the business to just spin out of control. And this brings us to a super critical point about paid advertising. The model here is crystal clear. Ads are an accelerator, not a discovery tool. You first prove your offer organically with the audience you've built. Once it's consistently profitable, then and only then you use paid ads to scale what you already know works. This simple sequence stops you from just burning cash on guesswork and makes sure every dollar you spend is funding a proven system. Another key accelerator is diversification. But listen, this isn't just about making more money. The real strategic insight here is that by building multiple income streams, from your core service to real estate and digital products, you create this profound financial resilience. That stability gives you the freedom to reinvest aggressively back into your core business and take smart, calculated risks from a position of strength, not scarcity. Now, you can't scale alone. It's just not possible. That's why this framework insists on early and decisive delegation. The mindset shift here is absolutely critical. Delegation isn't about losing control. It's about multiplying your impact. When you build a strong team, it allows you, the founder, to get out of the day-to-day grind and focus on the high-leverage stuff like vision and strategy. And that's where the real growth happens. All right, so we're moving from scaling tactics to the big picture strategic framework. This is where we get into the really deep structural thinking you need to build a business that can thrive not just for years, but for decades to come. At the heart of this entire framework is a pretty profound mental shift. It's about moving away from that short-term 3 to 5 year career thinking and instead making decisions based on a 10, 20, or even a 30-year timeline for your business. This long-term perspective completely changes how you think about risk, about investment, and about building your team. Okay, so this brings us to a really powerful and honestly an often overlooked strategic tool, real estate professional status, or REPS. It's a specific tax designation where one spouse can qualify by dedicating a really significant amount of time to real estate activities. And this one little designation, it unlocks an incredibly powerful financial engine. And wow, this slide just brilliantly illustrates the growth loop it creates. Let's just walk through it. So first, one spouse qualifies for reps. What that does is it lets you use rental property losses, which are often just on paper from something called accelerated depreciation, to offset the active income from your main business. The result? A massively reduced tax bill. This in turn frees up a ton of cash flow, which you can then reinvest into growing your business and buying more properties. And you start the whole cycle all over again. It's a self-funding machine. So this strategy sounds almost too good to be true, right? And any deep analysis has to consider the real-world friction points. So what are the hidden complexities here? What are the implicit assumptions we need to talk about before you try to implement a model this advanced? Yeah, the analysis points out several very real-world challenges. A huge one is making sure the spouse who's managing the real estate actually feels professionally fulfilled, not just like a cog in some tax machine. Then you've got the practical hurdles. Big unexpected repairs that can drain your cash flow, and lenders who often get skittish when dealing with complex LLC structures, which can lead to longer underwriting times and higher interest rates. Look, these aren't deal breakers, but they are critical things you have to plan for. So how does this all come together? Let's synthesize these pillars, the engine, the accelerator, and the framework, into a single cohesive growth model, where every single component reinforces the others. And this is it. This is the ultimate takeaway. The goal here isn't just to build a successful business that can afford some smart financial strategy on the side. No, the goal is to design a unified system where your strategic framework, your corporate structure, your tax planning, your investment vehicles becomes a core engine that actively funds and accelerates your growth. It's a complete reframing of how business structure and growth can be intertwined. And that leaves us with one final thought. Is your business structure a cost center, or is it a growth engine?